I look.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Hire Woman Mastermind. I'm Shira Lotzar, happy to be your host and joined by my colleague, Vern Schellinger, and we are happy to answer your job search questions. We are a small, intimate group right now, but hopefully we will have some more people join us. So Ty and Steve, you are in the hot seat.
Yeah, front and center.
Front and center. So what can we answer for you, or just topics, or here's Sally?
Usually, we build up on, these Fridays and kind of something emerges. I don't know that I have any open or pertinent questions right now. It's really just become, I wouldn't say pedantic, but it's more of the process of, investigation and obviously the, engagement with potential opportunities and the networking pieces we've been talking about. So I feel okay with where I'm at. And the stuff that I'm seeing out there, and there's always more that seems to be coming open. So it's really just making or taking advantage of that for me.
Any tips you have to share with other folks, or any interesting situations you came across in your job search this week?
I think the interesting piece is that people can define things a certain way. And it's obviously completely different based on situation. Like somebody that says, I'm working right now on one opportunity where I'm expecting a final round interview to be scheduled in the next week, let's say. And the recruiter that just reached out to me and that we've been engaging with basically said, I have this client opportunity, and they've been super responsive. Quote unquote. And super responsive can mean different things to many people, but in this particular case, we did a phone screen this week with the HR person. It was scheduled for 30 minutes. We went almost an hour, which I always felt was, kind of a good thing that you've got that conversational presence going. And you've checked in and said, want to be respectful of time and all of those kind of things. And, I think just a bit more than 24 hours later, I heard from the recruiter again that they had a conversation with this HR manager, and they were thoroughly impressed and went really well, and we want to move on and all of this sort of thing. So to me, a 24-hour kind of feedback is responsive.
Yeah, it is.
But it's that gap in between. You've had that conversation and you're getting the feedback that can feel like such a longer kind of period of time than it really is. So it's keeping the mindset of saying, not only did she get the feedback, not only do you now have the feedback, but I told this particular recruiter, this talent acquisition person, you're doing what I've seen my colleagues that have been in that field do, and doing it well, is that whether you had the complete picture or not, you're reaching out, you're communicating, you're keeping the candidates engaged.
That's right.
And it's so important to be doing that one way or another.
It's huge. It is absolutely huge. And I know of a client who is thinking of engaging me, right? And when I was asking them about, the situation, they said, because they try to do the search on their own. And they said, we've basically been losing people because we are impossible to get a hold of. Like, it's this company that's been growing rapidly and all this stuff. And my point of contact, he goes, he says, I only check 30% of my emails a day. And I'm like,
yeah.
And I'm like, yeah. And they've just been losing people. And I said, if you work with me, I said, the opposite is going to be your case. I said, I'm unbelievably responsive to candidates. I'm like pushing the situation. I'm like, right. Like, let's just get, and keeping everybody informed and all of this. And candidates need that. You need that. You need to know what's going on. You need to feel taken care of. You need to feel like you know where the process is. Like, those are very important things to you. You're literally waiting by the phone. And I know this. I'll call or text my candidates, and 9 times out of 10, they call, text me right back. Like, it's just because people are waiting if this is a job that you want. And so recruiters need to be responsive to that.
Yeah, it's very interesting to me to look at the dynamic between the different opportunities I have going and the recruiters that are involved and that sort of thing, because I've had opportunities come up recently where recruiters or the hiring managers or contacts that I've been involved with, very different styles of communication, very different process for communication. And I tell people up front in a very conversational and kind of point in time way, hey, I'm the only thing I need in this process, good or bad, move forward or not, is the communication. So I try to be very transparent about that. So that's really where I've, kind of seen things go this week. There's obviously more in my hopper, but and it's also, I think the bigger thing for me is we've talked about it here. It is the full-time job of finding a good opportunity. It is the mental and the emotional and stress and all those pieces that come with this situation, and just being able to use these opportunities that we're having each week to, be able to connect with folks and not vent or what have you, but just kind of share and kind of take, pieces away and kind of recenter yourself. So, that's really the important thing for me.
That's great. And I just want to double back real fast on the recruiter situation. I do want to explain something to all of you around, and I do this once in a while to talk about recruiters. I think it's worth repeating. You are going to have various contacts, points of contact in your search. You might have a corporate recruiter who is juggling 30 open requisitions, job openings on their desk. You might have a headhunter like me. Could be somebody who has minimal searches, could have somebody who has a volume of searches, especially those who are doing what we call contingent search, where they're not paid until they make the placement. They could be juggling dozens of opportunities. You could just be working with an HR manager, HR director, who is everything on their plate, from compensation and benefits, like all these, and then recruiting is sort of on the side. You could be dealing directly with the hiring manager or even the executive director if it's a nonprofit, let's say. The point is that all of these people have various lenses, various scopes of work and volumes of work on their desk, and various perspectives on how to handle recruiting. I happen to be very blessed in that when I take on searches, I can take on a few I just take on a few at a time, okay, max, which means I have the time to be responsive. I don't have dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of candidates. That happens to be me, but I'm unusual. Most recruiters are not that way. Recruiters have volumes of opportunities. HR people are busy. The point is that the majority of people that are going to be in your world are going to be overwhelmed and very stressed out, and may not have the systems in place, the time, the ability, whatever, to be as responsive as we want. So for as much as I preach responsiveness, right, and I try to do it myself, I'm very, very aware that a lot of my colleagues just physically aren't able to do it. Because that many people, that many candidates to juggle, and hiring managers and all the work that's on their desk, and it can be nearly impossible to touch base with candidates as frequently as a candidate would want. So I always say, pack your patience, and just be aware that on the other side, they're pretty overwhelmed usually. So that's helpful.
And the other thing I just add to that is that they're all individuals. They all have their own skills and abilities.
Right.
And some people have better skills and abilities in this particular function.
Some are more administratively minded than others. Yeah.
And so you'll run the gamut from, snake oil salesman to very professional, very responsive, just as you were just saying, Steve. I mean, and it's a spectrum of people. And then when you're in the job search, it's a recruiter, and at the beginning it's a recruiter and you're looking for a job. So you're more than open to talk to people about any opportunity. And then you start to experience the recruiter, how responsive or non-responsive they are, how they communicate with you and everything else. So it's just one of those necessary parts of the whole process.
And I would say two more things about that. Number one, please, 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 whether your experience with the recruiter is positive or otherwise, please do not let your experience with the recruiter influence how you feel about the company.
Yeah.
Often one has absolutely nothing to do with the other. Okay. Oftentimes the recruiting process is just a process. It's almost like a separate entity from everything else the organization is doing. So please don't let that influence you one way or the other. And then the other thing is take control of take ownership of your own needs. If you need something from a recruiter, you call them, you text them, you send them a carrier pigeon, right? You do what you need to do. You ask them the questions you need to ask. You know, you can jostle them a little bit. Now, don't be too nudgy. Don't call them every day, right? But if you need something from them, you need a piece of information, whatever, it's okay. You can ask the question. Now, I'm not saying how responsive they're going to be to you, but you are certainly welcome to do that. And especially if you are pending with another opportunity and that opportunity is coming to a close and you're about to get an offer, and the one that you really want, your first choice, you haven't heard back from, they actually need to hear from you. You need to say, look, about to get another offer, or I just got another offer. You are my first choice. Where do I stand in the process? And here's what's going to happen. If you are into strong consideration, excuse me, that employer will say, oh, thank you for letting us know. Don't make any decisions without us. But right, they're going to get very excitable. But if you're not, then they'll say, oh, thank you for letting us know. We certainly can't hold you back from another opportunity. All the best to you, right? You'll know exactly where you stand if you push the issue and let them know that you have another offer pending. You'll know exactly where you stand.
Yeah, it's for me, and I love the take from others as well. It's going to be that very personal kind of process that you've started building up and being able to kind of manage that and the pieces that go with it. So, which has been, I think, for me, the toughest part of what I'm doing. It's not, the mechanics of it. It's not the communication. It's not the networking piece. It's I'll call it the back end side of what I'm doing and kind of how I'm going about it. And I chuckled as you were kind of going through these points, only because that recruiter I've been talking about literally just contacted me now and wants to set a date for next week. So, it's that kind of thing. It's that valley and that up and down of saying, okay, well, I didn't hear about this. Where does it stand? Blah, blah, blah. What do I do? And then getting that moment of, oh, okay, yeah, they're doing what they've continued to do. And that also for me tells me something about, the relationship potentially that recruiter or that acquisition person or that HR manager has with the company, or tells me a little, if it's direct with the HR folks at the company or hiring manager, tells me a little bit about the company or the situation I'd be walking into. So
well, actually, let me caution you on that. Let me really caution you on that. Thank you for mentioning that, because that's actually to my point around not letting that influence you around the situation. And I'll tell you why. Because the relationship between the recruiter and the hiring manager may have absolutely nothing to do with the recruiter and may have nothing to do with how the company is. There are so many variables in place. Corporate recruiters oftentimes are not able to have the kind of relationship with the hiring managers that they want, because those hiring managers oftentimes, I'm just saying this is nothing to do, this is nothing against the recruiters, but the relationship is one where there often isn't a lot of respect. And it's very unfortunate, very unfortunate. Most hiring managers in larger companies do not respect the role of recruiters and sort of put them off to the side, say, yeah, go get me those candidates, but they're not. But the hiring manager doesn't always hold up their end of the situation to give the recruiter the information they need, the time they need, the responsiveness that they need. So, but that's not a reflection on the company. That's just often the dynamic between hiring managers and recruiters. And the other thing is that, not every recruiter is very experienced, right? A lot of recruiters are early in their career, corporate recruiters, that is. So they may not even know how to handle the hiring manager. They may feel intimidated actually by the hiring manager. So again, a lot of these things is just the dynamic, the recruiting dynamic may have zero reflection on how the company is and how it's going to be for you to work there. That's why I'm trying to separate out the recruiting process from what your experience might be as an actual employee. So if that's helpful. You're on mute, Steve.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, I can, again, I know I've shared this with the group before. I can't tell you how many times where I was involved in a recruiting process because it was a pretty senior level person. And I'd go to the senior VP or the executive vice president, and I said, here are the 5 resumes that, we really feel these are the best qualified candidates. Look at them and let me know which 2 or 3 or all 5 that you'd like to interview. Yeah, I'm going to do that right away. This is a critical.
And a week goes by, right?
And then a week goes by, and then 2 weeks goes by, and I'm following up with emails. I'm seeing them in the hall. When are you going to get to the resumes? And they got other things they're doing.
They got other things. It's not top priority.
Yeah, it's not. in somewhere in their mind, it's a priority, but all these other,
Not urgent.
it's
It's
not
important,
urgent.
but not
It's
urgent.
not
Or
urgent.
not seemingly urgent, because what they don't understand is that they can lose great
Which
candidates.
which is
And
the other,
we often tell them that, but it's like, yeah, you know, oh,
yeah.
there'll be somebody else. They think the candidates grow on trees, right? Like, yeah, there's somebody else to come along. Really, it's because employers are not recruiters. They don't understand the recruiting process. They don't understand the candidate mindset. They don't understand the things that we understand. And we can educate them only, but to a point. They have their subject matter expertise, right? And that's what's top of mind for them. So I just want to say all of this because you're the one side of the equation, they're the other. And to the extent that you can understand where they're coming from, that could help, you know, with your own emotional processing, right? With this journey. So hope that helps. Ty.
I have a quick question. What impression does it create when you talk about what you're doing? You say that you're networking and then make a statement like, well, I'm working for the best fit. I've interviewed, I've been offered jobs and I've turned them down or I pulled out of the process, but I'm looking for a great fit, but this job looks like it, looks like it would be a good fit. What impression would that be?
I'm a little confused. Can you state the question again?
Well, basically, I mean, it comes up sometimes during the interview. What are you doing now? And you say, "Well, I'm networking.
Oh.
And I'm talking to all these associations, talking to people, and I've interviewed for jobs, and I've turned down jobs, and I also pulled out for them. This looks like a really good opportunity here." What impression?
I think that's fine. Just say that I'm actively seeking the right opportunity, just like you said, and I'm, looking for the right fit and being very selective. That's another phrase you can use. I'm being very selective in my search.
Okay, I guess what I'm thinking is, how do I justify, like, okay, I haven't worked in a while. I guess that's what I'm trying to do is like,
Just say
oh,
that
what do you do?
I'm being very selective in my job search.
Okay, great.
That's a good phrase.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah,
The
sure.
other thing, if you can add anything along those lines, I mean, if you are doing any volunteer work, or if you're, taking a course to brush up on skills, I mean, to let the other person know, you're actively engaged in your job search, you're actively engaged in continuing to learn, do or helping others through volunteer work. Obviously, you have to actually do those things to say them, but that's just another way to answer that question.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Sally, what's going on for you?
Yeah, hi there. Let's see. This week I did have a job interview that went really, really well, and I would be surprised if I didn't get the job.
Wow.
It was so good. I haven't had one that was that good for a long time. But the other thing is that on December 7th, probably about 5th or 6th, I applied for a job, and this woman called me up and said she wanted to interview me. So on the 7th, we had prepared for this interview. The night before, I went on to LinkedIn to check her out and to get her history. And about an hour before I went to look her up, she announced that she was leaving the association. And so I was kind of like, I don't know what to do here. So I went through the interview, and at the very end, she did admit that she was leaving. The position was a very low level position. And so she was leaving, and then there was 2 other positions that were opening up in her department, which were higher level, and I could probably do those jobs. So she said, well, the executive director isn't coming back until the 16th, which is today. And I have noticed that there have been people looking from her organization that are looking at my LinkedIn profile. So, I know that there's some interest in that position right now. And so I decided to write a letter or an email to this woman that had left or that was going to leave, and apparently she's already gone.
Mhm.
So that kind of link has kind of softened a bit. And I don't want to lose this position. It would be a really good job to have. And so I wrote to, I can't find out who the executive director is. It's
It's not on their
saying.
website. That should be, it should
It's
be front
not.
and center on their website.
It's not. And it's
Would
not
you-
in
would you-
LinkedIn.
Would you feel comfortable chatting me privately the name of the association?
Sure, yes, I can certainly do that. But also this morning I did finally on like on their contact us page, I wrote this note saying, I don't want to lose the opportunity to help build your organization or your department. And so please keep me in consideration. They may be falling apart, I don't know. But that's what I did, and I don't know whether it was probably the best thing, but
Huh.
I mean, nobody's there anymore.
Wow. Is it a small staff?
I don't know because, it does say
Would you mind chatting me right now?
okay. Oh yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
So anyway, they don't really tell you. You have to, sorry. I forgot it.
So yeah, I don't know what to say. I mean, that sounds like a bit of an unusual situation. So you've had one interview?
Yes, and I
Huh.
had the interview with the person that was already leaving. She had already announced that she was leaving.
Huh.
And when you go onto their website, it says staff, and you have to have an account with them. And I signed up for an account.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And
yeah.
it still's not opening up to seeing who the executive director is. And I went on LinkedIn to try and
Yeah,
see.
it's behind their firewall. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a members only feature.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just looked at it.
Mhm.
Right.
But still, even on LinkedIn, it's not very clear.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, this is a bit, and the only person who knows you there is the person who interviewed you, who's left.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, Vern, I don't know what else.
Well, the only other thing you might possibly do is again, start reaching out to people in your network and just ask them, have you ever heard, who do you know
Yeah.
that, or people like Shira, people who
Mhm.
know the association.
Well, exactly right. Yeah, I happen
Or
not
other-
to know this group. I know associations related to them, because
Yes.
that community is, there's a pulse
Uh-huh.
in that world.
Sure.
But yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I wish
It's,
I had, yeah.
I mean, and from a networking standpoint, this is a pretty simple thing. If you reach out to people who and
Yes.
are in the association world, and do you know this association? They're either going to say yes or no. But all
Mhm.
it takes is
Well,
one yes.
guess what? It
Yes.
turns out I'm first level connected with their director of meetings and business development. I don't know her personally, but she's so if you could do me a favor, just
Okay.
so we don't spend too much time on this call about this, could you just
Yes.
shoot me a note offline?
Okay.
Okay, and then I can see about, I don't know, connecting you with
Okay.
her or whatever.
Sure. Okay. That would be great. Thank you so much, Shira.
Yeah, you're welcome. Happy to help. All right. Oh, I found the name of the person. I found the name of their number one, and that
Okay.
person's title is Executive Vice President and CEO. So maybe that's why you couldn't find them.
Okay.
So I'm gonna chat that to you.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure. Good. Thank you.
And that's on. I just found that on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
All right, so we'll move on.
Yay.
Well, I was going to suggest, was there any discussion of the culture in the organization during the interview? I mean, I always like to ask the question, what did you like about working here? Or why did you come to work here? So you get a sense so they can say yes, no, that type of thing. Or I'm leaving because da da da.
To be honest, the position that I had applied for, we talked about the salary, and the salary was nowhere close to what I could even live with. So she understood that, but she did sit there and talk to me, and she said she was gonna forward my resume for another position that would probably be opening up, and they didn't have, excuse me, they didn't have, like the job description written up yet. So I was a little surprised to see she's gone already, but you know, maybe they told her to leave.
A lot of things happening in associations, actually in the whole workforce. There's been a lot of tumult in the
Yeah.
workforce these days for all kinds of reasons. So I have no idea what's going on over there. But anyway.
Am I? What?
Anyway.
Sure.
Any other topics you guys want to chat about since we're a small group today?
I could share an experience, I guess, I
Sure.
had yesterday. I went on to a happy hour association, happy hour. I don't know, maybe you know this person, maybe you don't. Share Lee Gimple. He
I know that name.
yeah, he hosted a happy hour, and there was about 30-some people in it. And I didn't know what to expect. It was a group that came out of ASGs that was posted on Collaborative.
Collaborate.
So I thought, well, yeah, so I'll join that. And basically he offered up, and during the time I was able to, he did a short interview with me. He said, you're looking for a job, and anybody have any leads? And I got one lead out of it. Another person just emailed me this morning.
Yeah, that's the
possibility.
beautiful thing about our association community. It just occurred to me that all three of you are in connected to the sector, which is interesting. Steve, are you familiar with the with Nicole's association coffee chat on every morning at 8:30?
No, I had not heard about that.
Sally and Ty, you're both involved in it, right? Ty, I know you have been. Sally,
I
you've
have,
been on it,
I
right?
have not
I'm
been
sorry. What
lately.
organization?
No, there's this informal networking meeting every day at 8:30 by Nicole.
Yeah.
You're on
Yes.
it, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I've been I thought it was only on Wednesdays.
Did she change it? I thought it was every day.
No, it is every day. It's
Oh,
just
okay.
the happy hour is on Wednesdays.
Oh.
And so Ty is talking about the afternoon. I've been going in the morning, and I actually got to bring up the subject for yesterday morning's meeting. So it was kind of exciting. People like the topic.
Well, see, Steve, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop in the chat the Zoom link for it, and
Okay.
all that it is, it's a half hour, 8:30 to 9 every day, Monday through Friday. It's just this group of association, colleagues who get together. This woman, Nicole, runs it, and they talk about whatever, everything from silly cat videos to some association best practice and trend and whatever. People mention that they're looking for a job. It's not job seekers, it's just anybody, including job
Yes.
seekers. And in fact, there was somebody on, I mentioned, hold on, let me just put this link for you here. There it is. So earlier, I don't know, a couple of years ago, we had maybe it was last year, we had an HMM person, a person who was on this call for a long time, who found out about the group through this call, went on that call. Turns out she had applied for an association job, membership job, didn't hear back or didn't get it, whatever. Turns out the CFO of that organization was on that call and said, hey, the job's still open. Send me your resume. She got the job like through that group, right? It's just a great network and very collegial. Like, I don't know, maybe 25 people show up or something every time. And it's just, I haven't been in a long time, but I know that it's a good group. So
There's also on Fridays at 4.
Yeah, that's another
4
one.
o'clock every Friday.
Yeah.
And I can put that in the chat.
Yeah. And that one's more of they have a topic, they'll have a speaker. But you can also network with them. Yeah. Those are two kind of local free networking kinds of groups.
And I do want to say that today we were talking a lot about Christmas vacations and things like that. And a lot of people were saying that they were kind of discouraged because their colleagues are already off for Christmas break. And so next week if you go next week, it's probably going to be a little
light.
Sparse, yes.
Yeah.
And the next 2 weeks will probably be very sparse. And I know that Nicole, who runs the session, she is off for the next 2 weeks, and she said that she's going to be spotty about coming. So don't get discouraged over the next 2 weeks if you decide to go.
But I will suggest too that that besides that group, you know, it's really important to continue to network, especially within the community, right? Because association colleagues, as you all know, tend to be very giving, very generous, very collegial. So I would encourage you guys, as you find colleagues who are in the sector, who are fellow job seekers, do one-on-ones, get together in small groups, help each other, right? I mean, because you never know. I mean, the three of you are in completely different parts of the sector, and yet you never know who knows who, right? So in fact, the three of you, do you guys have each other's emails? Have you connected? Make sure that you're
Yeah.
you never
Yeah.
each other.
Yeah. Yes. Matter of fact, on that call yesterday, I also hooked up with another fellow job seeker. He was actually looking for like a director of membership job, and we're gonna connect. He goes, well, I do come across lower level jobs to a lot of lower level jobs because I'm not actually looking for a director's job. So I'm going to connect with him.
You never know.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, you know, it's funny. We're sitting here talking about this and the kind of connectivity piece of where those leads or opportunities come from. And I don't want to say it's random, but sometimes it is that one-off kind of connection that happens sense that, hey, through this process, somebody connects me to this event or this group or what have you, and then potentially something coming from that. That's exactly how at least 2 or 3 of the opportunities I'm pursuing right now have come about. My own process gets me X way there, but then through either that or through, some other random opportunity that's come in, I'm in whatever stage I am of kind of investigating or kind of engaging that. So, and that for me is a very positive thing because it's momentum. You don't know where quite you're going. You don't know if you're in that process yet to land and what have you, but you're moving. And I think that's kind of super critical as well at times, is just to feel that momentum of saying, don't know what it is, don't know where it's going to take me, but yeah, I'm moving and making it work. So
I call those divine connections, right?
Yeah.
God will just hook us up with all kinds of people. It is amazing because you never know where these connections are going to lead. That's why it's so important. So important to keep networking. Just get out there and talk to people. And look, yes, to absolutely talk to people in whatever it is. Let's say your sector or your profession. Talk to everybody. You never know.
Yeah.
Your next door neighbor. I got a client many, many years ago who was my she was my aerobics teacher. Okay. Like you just don't know. So, tell everybody, what you're looking for.
I go to the post office and I'm in line waiting. I talk to people. I tell them I'm looking for a job. You just never know.
Yeah. So Ty, did you want to chime in?
I have a question too, is I've had 2 recent interviews and they tell me they're probably not moving ahead till after the first of the year. How much space would you give them after the first of the year to contact them?
2 weeks. 2 weeks. Yeah. First week, they're just settling in, recalibrating. Second week, they're going to start thinking about it, after the full 2 weeks.
Great. Thank you.
But also too, remember that even though I said, oh, you can, touch base with recruiters and whatever, and yeah, you can, but do know that if you are a top candidate for them, they're going to reach out. Like they don't want to lose candidates, hopefully, but they're going to reach out at some point. So you don't have to over push, because, and sort of wait by the phone. It's just let it be. Look, if you haven't heard in an extended period of time, you can reach out, but that could be just their process.
Yeah.
You just keep doing your thing. You keep planting seeds and they'll sprout when they're supposed to sprout.
Yeah. I really identify with that. I checked just because I was curious, because you lose sense a bit of time, maybe sometimes if you're focusing on the overall process and all the seeds you're planting and what have you. that opportunity for that final interview I was talking about earlier, I only connected with this individual, the TA recruiting group, 9 days ago. and that whole, you've gone from their conversation to HR conversation to final interview, because they've taken the time to think about their process, what they're looking for the role, how they're screening, what they're looking or hoping to see. You're able to get through that in a way and kind of engage with that in a way that says, we're going to be as efficient as we can. And 9 days is really 7 business days, given where it fell in the calendar. That's not a tremendous amount of time. To me, as I look at that, they're doing the steps they need to do, but they're also really engaging me. Yeah.
Yeah. No, which is great. And when that can happen, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's just, that's a rare thing, but it's great when it does happen that way.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Other topics? Vern, any interesting anecdotes in your world?
Well, let me go back to, when you're talking about family and friends, one of the 8 competencies that we teach in Context Count is envision your ideal network. And we talk about the different communities within your world. I mean, you have your work net, the people you work with that you get to know pretty well. If you're in an organization, you have this larger organizational network. You have a professional network, whatever profession you're in. And then you have your personal network, your family and friends. And what we find in talking to people and people taking the assessment, that the family and friends is one that doesn't get leveraged enough. People don't talk about what they do in their careers, and that especially as a job seeker, let family and friends know, because again, your cousin might say, oh, my brother-in-law works for that company that you're applying to. All of a sudden you've got, a connection into that company somehow. So that would be.
Yeah, it's rare when you have a friend. I mean, you don't always talk about work. In fact, I've had relationships where like, yeah, what do you do again? Because you just don't, that's just not part of the conversation, so you do have to let people know what's going on.
Yeah. So that would be one of the first things to think about. And then, some of the things that you use in an interview when you create your stories, whatever method you use to create your stories, those are also things in the appropriate time and place to communicate to people in your network as you're doing your job search, because that again gives them a little bit more insight into who you are, what you're good at, the type of work you do, the type of results you can deliver, and that has a better chance of them remembering you, especially if it's somebody that it might be the first time you're meeting with them. But again, it's got to be, when I say the opportune place and time, if they say something, well, tell me a little bit more about you. What give me an example of, something that, you've done well. Now, not everybody's going to ask you those types of questions, but if they do, be prepared to answer that question.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, it's sorry to say it. I think it's taking the opportunity space that you're in and adding that kind of personal or connective element to it. And if you're in an environment where you're seeing that, whether it's completely of interest to you or not, if it's something you can connect on, I've always had really good luck engaging with folks and making that kind of lasting, I don't want to say connection, but that lasting moment, kind of being able to build off of that, of taking that something personal and working it into that fabric. So I actively look for that.
Yeah. I mean, I've had a recent experience where one of the people that lives in our community, Chris says to me, he says, I got to connect you to these 2 people. And so he sent me the thing in LinkedIn and so forth and so on. And what Chris, he obviously must have forgot. He actually connected me to this first person like a year ago. And so I'm thinking, you know, and I think I forgot that he connected me to this person a year ago, right? Because it was one of those conversations where this person had a business, he was looking to hire coaches. I said, I'm not looking to be hired as a coach. I'm not, you know, we had this conversation, but it was kind of like a one and done conversation. So Chris now is reintroducing me to this person, thinking that I've never met him. And I'm thinking, I don't know this person. And I get on the call and he says, so what do you want? That's what he said. He says, what do you want? I'm going, what? And then it dawned on me, and I think his name was Fred. I said, Fred, I think Chris, you know, had forgotten that he introduced me to you a year ago, and you and I talked about your business and coaching, and I don't want anything right now. I was just reaching out, thinking this would be an introduction, and we'd get to know each other, and then see where it would go. So that was a completely dead end. It just it was just a little bit awkward, and it was a short conversation. The second person that Chris introduced me to is up in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and this person is a recruiter. Actually, started as an accountant. He got into the recruiting business, but he also has been pretty heavily invested in networking. Actually, runs a networking group. So he and I had a very engaging conversation about networking, and he actually is going to be in Naples the first 2 weeks in January, and we're going to get together and talk. So who knows where that will go? So
Nice.
You know, it's just an example of you're going to have those not so great networking meetings. My experience has been that those are few and far between usually, and most people you can, you know, have a pretty engaging conversation with. And obviously, if you connect with somebody, if you have an engaging conversation, then you have a second one, then a third one, then a fourth one. That's where the power of human connection can really come into play. You know, the more they learn about you, the more they know about you, the greater likelihood they're going to be able to help you,
Right.
and keep you top of mind.
And make sure that when you're sharing with people what you're looking for, that you break it down into two areas. What I call your lane and your community. Now, you don't have to use that terminology with them, but for your own sake, your lane is your profession. It's what you do. Your community is who you do it for. So your lane may be, Steve, in your case, some version of IT engineering, what have you. Who you do it for, the sector, the industry matters. Okay. Yeah. Now, not everybody has a community. Some people are cross-community, cross-sectoral. That's fine. So you don't have to necessarily bring up a community, but if you have one, that is very important. Like we've just said here in this association world, we had an association sectoral chat a little bit ago, right? All three of you are in completely different lanes, but you're all part of a similar community, which means that you can help each other in a very interesting way, right? So if you're talking to somebody and you're saying, look, I'm an IT person, I'm a customer service person, I'm an education person, whatever, say that. They might have a connection there. Also say if you are connected to the sector. And in your cases, you could simply say, hey, you know, well, Steve, I know you have different associations, not your only community, but let's just say it's one, right? Whereas Sally and Ty, you're pretty much exclusively focusing there. So if you're networking with somebody, could be anybody, and they say, so what are you looking for? Well, I'm looking for an IT job. And I'm focusing in on the association sector. And you'll see by the look in their eye if they know what you're talking about. Especially the associations, right? Most people don't know. But if they know, they know. And you can say, well, like, oh, great, associations, like which one? And all you need to do is say to them, look, if you have a connection within that community or networking groups or anything, please let me know. They don't have to be super specific if they're not part of your lane. Like you're in membership and they're in finance or whatever. Doesn't matter. As long as they can make some sort of connections into the sector, that can be super helpful. So make sure that you make a distinction between the two sides.
Yeah, absolutely. Ty, you want to go ahead?
Just have a quick question is, you've applied for a job you've not heard. It's like right in your backyard. What do you think about dropping off a packet to them, you know, directly at their
What do you mean a package?
Well, I mean, the same thing you sent or something, a follow-up note or something to them, because sometimes I think it gets lost in their email or it gets lost in the
So
tracking system.
understand these days, there are so many people working remotely, working hybrid, not working in the office at all. That anything you send to an office literally would have less of a chance sometimes of getting to them. We're just in a very, very different environment these days. There's not the assumption that people are in the office anymore. There are absolutely companies who are in the office, but you can't know that in advance. So these days I wouldn't. Used to be pre-pandemic, I would say, oh yeah, drop off a thank you note or do something interesting. You know, I've seen people do creative things, you know, what they send, but these days, no, I would definitely just do an email thank you note.
Yeah. You
Guess what I
know,
would,
sorry, go ahead.
oh, I'm sorry. I guess what I wasn't talking about like a thank you note, but just the application itself, the fact
Yeah,
that it's
the
like right around the
application.
corner from where I live,
Yeah.
just following up and dropping it off and just saying, okay, here it is, you know, just.
Yeah, I would keep it these days I keep it to email. Yeah. These days. Now, again, pre-pandemic, I would have had different advice. But just because you just don't know who's working there, if they're gonna, it's just, yeah, it's an interesting idea. I just the current market that we're in, I'd say keep it to email. It's good to be thinking about personalization in your application process for sure. And which leads me to think about the cover letter, which we haven't talked about in a long time, and how important it is when you write a cover letter to personalize that cover letter. Do not make your cover letters too generic. You want to customize it around your identification with any of the following: their mission, their industry, the role itself. You know, look at the job requirements and make sure that you're listing out what they want, what you have. You could even do it in a table. Your qualification, your requirements, my qualifications, anything that's very specific to that role. Don't assume that they're going to read the cover letter, but if they do, make sure that it's customized well. Just like with the resume needs to be customized. Absolutely. For every single job, every single job, every single job. Make sure that the keywords are there, right? When you're looking through that job announcement, look at the qualification section, look at the first 3 to 5 bullets. That's typically where the core qualifications are listed. Not the soft skills, not the, oh, we want a team player. No, none of that. The actual hard skills that they want, plus industry experience, is usually in the first 3 to 5 bullets. Pull out those keywords and make sure that they are layered throughout your resume, particularly next to every accomplishment bullet. So you want accomplishment bullets that are labeled. I'm not sure if I've ever shared this with you, but I might have done, you know, here or there, but I'll just.
Can you share it again?
I'm going to do it. Yeah, I'm going to do it right now. Yep, for sure. I'll do it. Give me one sec. What you're going to do, hold on. Where did I put it?
And again, the other point here is those soft skills, you know, good communications, good team player. I mean, there's almost nothing you can write on your resume that, I mean, you can say that on your resume, but again, there's no way that, you know, it's whether they know that you're just lying or, you know, just putting it in there, as opposed to your bullet points where you can say, you know, improved this particular process and saved the company X dollars, improved this process, implemented this programming system that improved the efficiency of the operation, the tangible things that you did that then you can speak to into the resume, because that's how most recruiters are going to, you know, screen the resumes. They're going to be looking at those bullet points and how well do those match up with what the requirements of the job are.
Yeah. Sorry, this is taking me an extra minute here. Bear with me.
I
Aha, I found it.
I use the table method, and I received compliments. You know, one of the questions I asked during the interview is what caught your eye on my resume and my information. They said, well, the way you had it laid out. I even had an interviewer say, when I go look for a job, I'm going to use that format.
So this is what I'm talking about, making sure that you have like an accomplishment bullet. And I'm a resume writer, so this is a sample. What I tend to do is I take the liberty of giving a bit of a longer accomplishment story because I'm labeling it. Okay. That way you can, what the recruiter will do is they'll quickly scan down the page. They'll see the keyword, and then they can read a full SAR story, situation, action, result. If you do not have these competency bullets, what happens is, just look at, I want you to see that visually what ends up happening. It ends up being just this, what I'll call want, right? It's the employer can't, like, it's just a bunch of bullets. It's a bunch of words. They literally cannot focus on what they need to focus on. But the second that you put in those keywords, right? Then it's like, oh, they focus on the keyword, and then visually you can have a more substantive bullet. You don't have to just write the one-liner, because the page is broken up with these bolded key competencies. Okay, it's just a visually much more attractive way to do it, and it helps the recruiter screen you better because they're focused on the keywords that are in the job description that are now in your resume, and it helps them say yes quicker. So definitely customize. I hope that's helpful. All right. Other questions, thoughts, ideas, topics? Well, remember to refer your friends. We're always happy to help people. All right. So we'll go ahead and early. Yeah.
Oh, I probably won't be here next week, so happy holidays to everyone.
Yeah. Merry Christmas,
Yeah.
everybody. Yeah. I'm planning on still, running these. So,
Okay.
whoever shows up, shows up.
And since Sally said that, I will not be here next week either, Shara.
Okay.
My
Good.
son will be in town, and we've planned a complete day of events with him,
Good.
next Friday. So
Cool. Have fun. Well, it might just be me, but that's all right.
Happy holidays. I don't know if
It'll be a quick meeting.
All right.
As long as you're not talking to yourself, I won't worry too much.
Yeah, all right. No.
I will do everything I can. I plan to be there just so you don't feel alone, but also to reconnect. So,
That's fine. That's fine. All right, everyone.
okay, happy holidays, everyone. Take
All right,
care.
if you'd like to stay on for the prayer call, you're welcome to do that. All right. Have a blessed day. Bye-bye.